Hello and welcome to the TRUUMAN Podcast, the podcast designed to create a generation of self-defined men. Today, I'm joined by Tyler Graham. Tyler, it's an absolute pleasure. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Lewis. Thank you so much for having me on. Excited to dig into some really good conversation today.
Amazing. I will caveat this conversation with, or tease this conversation with this stat. The average number of kids per people in this podcast is 3, and I have 0. So we'll soon be understanding what's going on over there. But Tyler, as always, with the TRUUMAN Podcast, in your own words, what makes you a man?
Mm. I love this question, and since we had kind of our pre-chat, it's one that I've been thinking about a lot for the past 2 weeks, and how I would answer that question. And I know we'll get into some of the fatherhood stuff, and thinking about how I'd want my sons to be able to answer this question one day. And the thing that I've come back to is I'm a Christian, so I've got faith as a big part of my life, and so I think about when man was created and the idea of when God created Adam and put him in the garden to work and tend it. There is this element of cultivation is kind of there from the beginning, from my perspective of what a man is called to do. He's called to cultivate, to take the things that are entrusted to him and make them better, whether that's his family, his job, his community, his land. And so that, I think, is the thing that when I think about what it means to be a man, what makes me a man, that's what I come back to, is that I want to faithfully cultivate and make better the things that have been entrusted to me. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that today with fatherhood and beyond, about how that looks. But that's what I would say.
Awesome. Love that answer. It's really nice. And thank you so much for taking the time to think about it. I think that's one of the skills as well, is to actually think about the question, not just try and
Yeah.
answer it. Is just really
Mhm.
just let it just percolate for forever.
Yeah.
Sort of the goal.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what it is that you do in and around the men's space?
Yeah. So, as Lewis alluded to earlier, I'm a dad of 6 kids. I have 3 boys and 3 girls that are ages 11. My oldest is 11, down to 3. And I work full time in the healthcare technology industry. But on the side, I run a small coaching business called 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood. And it's geared at creating coaching opportunities, resources, content for dads to encourage them to really slow down and be present. I think culturally, it's very normative for everybody, dads included, to live at a very fast pace, a pace that causes us to miss a lot of things that are happening in our life. And especially for dads, it creates this just kind of this speed at which you miss your kids growing up. And I've found in my own life the ability to slow down, to ruthlessly eliminate things from your life that are not serving your vision, and focusing all of your time and attention on things that matter, brings about just a tremendous sense of joy, of purpose, of peace. And that's really what I'm aiming at. I want to help dads slow down. I want to help them to be calm in moments of chaos. I want them to feel encouraged and equipped with the things they need to be present and intentional as dads, because it's not always easy. Um, so that's a little bit about what I do.
Yeah, awesome. One of the things you said at the beginning was all around like cultivating what it is that you have as a man, and it's really
Hmm.
interesting you say that that comes with speed as well, right? You want to get
Hmm.
as much resource, as much stuff
Yeah.
for your family as quickly as possible. So, when did you realize that you needed to slow down?
Yeah. So for me, my story, the story of slowing down begins at the very beginning of 2020. And so I mentioned before, just faith is a pretty foundational thing in my life. And so one of my rhythms is at the end of every year, I try to take a couple of days to just spend a lot of intentional time in reflection, and for me, for prayer, really reflecting back on the past year, what worked well, what didn't, and then kind of looking forward to the next year, casting vision. What do I want this next year of my life to look like? And we'll pray and just seek the Lord for any kind of word or phrase or something to inspire what that year may hold for me. And so going into 2020, the phrase that I continued to hear during this time of reflection was slow down. My wife and I were both heavily involved in our church. We had 4 kids at the time. We were about to have our 5th. Was born in January of 2020. And we were just really consistently just giving our lives away to people, spending a lot of time really investing in other people in these leadership roles that we were in, and found ourselves constantly on the edge of burnout. We would go really hard for 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then we would just crash, cancel plans for a week or two, and just veg out Netflix, and then just kind of bounce back and do it all over again. So going into 2020, had this phrase of slow down really on my heart. I'd read a book at that time called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by a guy named John Mark Comer, which is probably my number one all-time book recommendation. Just fantastic read and explanation of why it's so important to eliminate hurry from your life. And so my wife and I started to make these shifts in our family to slow down, and then the pandemic hit, and so it's kind of a forced slowdown in many ways, with so many things getting canceled, and we really took that year to press into rhythms of uh, just a much steadier pace for our life, a pace that would allow us, like I said earlier, to be present to our kids, to focus on the things that matter, to really dream about what we wanted our life to look like as a family, and to start making moves to bring that vision into reality. And we can talk more about that later. Things like, we have a small homestead on our land with some animals that all started to kind of come out during that time. 3 Mile Per Hour Fatherhood really started to come out at about that time. And it really was only through intentionally slowing down, removing some of these things from our life, that it created the margin we needed for these other things to come into the light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned you do this every year anyway. You reflect, you take some self time,
Hmm.
and you decide what the year ahead is going to look like anyway. Is
Hmm.
that something that you now practice more regularly? Is that a part of this slowing down? Is that something you would encourage more dads to consider?
Yeah, 100%. So I still do that at the end of every year. We in our family refer to the week between Christmas and New Year's as the in between week. It's a just a natural time for that. Things are a little bit slower. Work demands are less. The world kind of slows down a little bit in general during that time. So I really love utilizing that week. And then outside of that, I try to have pretty regular rhythms of reflection, whether it be going to a coffee shop. That's kind of my preferred place to be. I just really love good coffee and just kind of the vibe of a coffee shop. So I'll just put in some earbuds and listen to good music and reflect, journal a lot. And then at least once a year, preferably twice, I like to do a solo night away. So my wife holds it down here with the kids. I'll go either to a hotel, get an Airbnb. There's a place locally here in South Carolina where I'm at that has these free prayer cabins that you can go stay at for a night. And so I like to go in there and just spend a night, 24, 36 hours, kind of fully dedicated, no interruptions, just thinking through like what is working well in my life, what isn't, what are spaces I need to press in on, what are places I need to pull back from. And that's been an instrumental rhythm for me as I've learned to slow down and create time for it.
So, the most obvious question is, how did you get this permission? How was the conversation had? Because there's going to be blokes listening to this, and we've got less kids who wouldn't even dare.
Yeah, I think there's a question I navigate with dads a lot, and it's just by nature. I think oftentimes dads feel like they can't be okay until everyone is okay. And so taking care of themselves or prioritizing rhythms that they need to be at their best often come at the expense of everything else. And it it's the first thing that gets cut if life gets busy or if a kid doesn't feel well or any of life's events happen. But I think it's so critical to have these rhythms, whether you're a dad or not, to reflect, to cast vision, and to really understand where you're at and where you're going. And so for me, having 6 kids, coordinating that time is not easy. But my wife and I have like a really firm understanding that that time is critically important for not only me, but for our entire family. And so we have really worked to craft our lives in such a way that it allows me space to do that on a regular basis. I take 2 hours almost every weekend to go out to the coffee shop and to do that time. And you know, I think the big thing there is that it's reciprocal. I know this podcast is for men. Moms need that time too. Women need that time too, to be able to go out, to reflect, to have space away from the kids, to feel like a person outside of motherhood. And so for us, we work really hard to make sure that both of us have that time. Obviously, life happens, like I said, and things shift and change. But we do our best to make sure that both of us are getting what we need, and that's taken time. Like, it's not perfect from the beginning, but it really does require you to experiment, to try new things, to figure out what's working, what's not, and like, keep at it. Just because it's hard the first time, or maybe it doesn't work the first few times, like, don't give up and just axe it and say, well, I guess that doesn't work for us. Continue to find what works for you, and that includes not only creating the space itself, but what you do with that space. Like I said, I'm a big coffee shop guy, but I know other people, they just want to be outside. They may go for a hike or a nature walk. They may want to go shoot some hoops on a basketball court, or go somewhere and do some art, play some. A buddy of mine, as his thing is, he loves to just go to his basement and play music when he's got that time. And so whatever your thing is, to be able to kind of rest up, restore yourself, restore your soul, really fight for that, figure out what that is, and then prioritize it above, pretty much everything else.
Yeah, amazing. One of the statements that I always say is men should be more selfish because of all the things that you said, right? Which is
Yeah.
they're the last to sort of go through that. But it's
Yes.
important that it's reciprocated, right? I think
Hmm.
I know you don't specifically deal with relationships, but
Hmm.
based on your experience, is there that communication? Like, do you think that's lacking in a lot of men and dads'
Hmm.
lives?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think communication is one of the most challenging aspects of a relationship. And I think it depends on your personality, right? So in my marriage, my dynamics with my wife, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Enneagram, but I'm a big fan. Just went through it as part of some leadership training at a previous job. And I think it's really insightful. So whether it's, Enneagram, other people might be Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders, just some of those assessments to really know how you're wired and how you operate. I think those things can be super, super helpful. And so, for example, in the Enneagram, I'm a 9, which is a peacemaker, which means I tend to kind of stuff my own feelings down, my own preferences, my own desires, to keep the peace. I just want things to be harmonious, and I don't want to do anything that's going to rock the boat. And for a lot of years, that meant I neglected myself because I'm just always prioritizing what other people want, what other people need, what I think other people want and need, while all the time saying, well, if I ask for what I need and it goes unmet, like, that's going to be really disappointing. So it's a lot easier to just keep that to myself and ignore that, and I'll just kind of get through. I'll just make sure everybody else is good. Whereas my wife, she's a 1, and which is the perfectionist. So she has like very black and white views of what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And so she knows, like, if something is good, feels good and right to her, she's just going to do it. And it's taken us a long time to figure out how we specifically communicate with those dynamics at play that are unique to us. That's not true of every marriage or every relationship, but it's true for us. And it took us years. We've been married, this summer will be 13 years. It's taken, probably 5 or 6 of those years to really figure out what are those dynamics. How do I get better at expressing what I need? How does she get better at helping me to like uncover that and create space for me to share those things? And so I think knowing how you're wired, I think knowing kind of what some of those core motivators are for you, super helpful tool in really understanding how to best communicate with your spouse or your significant other.
Let's talk a little bit about the relationship that you now have with your kids. How has
Yeah.
that how has that changed since you slowed down? And how has that changed through the kids, right? You've got boys and girls. So
Yeah.
how does that work as
Yeah.
a man?
Yeah. Great question. So, one of the unique things I think about having so many kids is that, going back to my previous answer, is like there's a lot of personalities in my house. Not only the dynamics of girls and boys, which I think can be very naturally different anyway, but then you have these unique personalities of all 6 kids. And it's what slowing down has allowed me to do is better see and know and understand those personalities and those dynamics and see them at play in my kids, right? I'm not just trying to like blanket parent everybody the same way or connect with everybody the same way. It's allowed me to really kind of shape and form my fatherhood to like what my kids need. So like for example, my oldest, my daughter, she's 11. She's wired very much like me. We're both pretty introverted, more naturally reserved. We're not going to be as talkative as some of the other people in our house. And so like 2 weeks ago, I took her down to Atlanta for a concert, just me and her as a birthday present. And we had to get about a 2-hour car ride together, and we talked some, but for the most part, we sat in silence. Like she was reading a book, I was listening to music. I'd reach over every now and then and kind of rub her on the head, or ask her what she's reading, or something like that, just to engage her. But she was just very content to like sit by me and just be together. Like that's all it needed to be in that time. Whereas if I had my 9-year-old son in the car with me, he would have peppered me with questions about everything for 2 straight hours. Like he's just the most talkative, inquisitive. He just wants to know everything. And like he's the one that I have to tell consistently, like, you gotta stop talking, buddy. Like other people need space to be able to share. And I know that now. Like I know how to engage them. I know with my daughter, it's more of like that, what I call shoulder to shoulder time, where we're like doing something together. Because if I try to sit her down and have like a really direct conversation, she just kind of shuts down a little bit. She doesn't come alive in those moments. Whereas with my son, like he's very much face to face. He just wants to be like sitting down, talking about life, about things that are on his mind, books that he's reading, something that he saw on TV. Like he just always wants to do that. And so being able to slow down helps you to see kind of those unique aspects of each kid, and your spouse or your significant other as well, and be able to better understand what do they need, how are they wired, and how can I meet their needs as their dad. So that's been really cool to see.
It's interesting that you mentioned you had some alone time with your daughter. And for a lot of guys who move past the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 kids,
Mhm.
life
Yeah.
becomes them and the kids. So, can you explain how important it is to
Mhm.
have individual relationships and individual time with each kid?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that there's so much benefit to having that space with your kids. I mean, it just helps you to uncover and see and have conversations that you just can't have in a whole family setting. I think there's plenty of really good, wonderful things you can do if it's your whole family together sitting around a dinner table. We try to maximize that time and be intentional there as well. But when you have that one-on-one time, it really does allow you to, again, see kind of new aspects of your kid, pay attention to things, let them kind of lead the conversation to figure out what's on their heart. What are they thinking about a lot? And have they had a space to bring that up? That's probably my biggest driver of getting one-on-one time, is being able to ask my kids, is there anything you've been thinking about a lot lately? especially for my kids that are wired more like my oldest, that are not going to naturally share those things. You have to kind of pull it out of her. And so that one-on-one time creates space for that. And the encouragement that I would give to dads, because it is difficult to find that time, especially if you've got a lot of kids. The encouragement that I have is that it doesn't have to be anything extravagant or even out of the ordinary. I got to do this concert with my daughter, which was amazing, but that's not a regular occurrence. That's a once a year thing for her birthday. More often than not, it's us taking a walk up and down our street for 10 minutes, or it's me getting on the floor building Legos with my son, or us sitting at the table doing an art lesson on YouTube. And like carving out 10 to 15 minutes where you're fully present with them it can be massive, and it requires a lot less planning, a lot less prep. It's a lot less pressure. You just show up, be present, and like see what your kids want to talk about. Come prepared with a few questions to ask to get the conversation going. But other than that, like it doesn't have to be overly complicated, which I think us as men can kind of tend towards making things more difficult than they need to be, and this is no exception.
For sure, we are known for putting barriers up as for anything and everything. There was always an excuse. One thing I would like to sort of touch on is as your kids get older, are you going to continue that, or are you going to look at ways that you can maybe bring them into? We talked about your time and your space. So as they sort
Yeah.
of adults and they sort of do that, is
hmm
there a way of sort of finding that balance, maybe for dads with older kids?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the truth is, I don't know. I have hopes and dreams of what I would like it to look like as my kids get older. Where really right now, I want them to see what I'm doing. I want them to see the way that I'm crafting my life. There's a phrase, more is caught than taught. Like our kids aren't just going to do what we say; they're going to do what we do. And so my hope would be that my kids will see me prioritizing this time, and that I will get to invite them into that they'll get to see, man, there's a lot of benefit to this. And we're trying to do that with our kids already. Doing different things that I think are going to set them up to be better equipped than I was, even now, to understand themselves. I mean, I think that's such a huge thing as people, and for men especially, is to understand yourself. I've talked about that a lot already. How am I wired? What am I thinking? What things are weighing on me? What is going well in my life? What's not? And creating rhythms for my kids to be able to engage that at the degree that they can right now, as an 11-year-old or a 9-year-old, I think is really helpful. I know it's not going to be perfect, but the thing that we always come back to is that like our kids are learning what it means to be a human. Like they're just learning how to show up, how to exist in the world, what their place in the world is, and we want to equip them with what they need to not only navigate that now as an 11-year-old, but in 3 years when she's 14, or about to turn 15, like that she has that foundation that she can build off of. Maybe her rhythms will look like mine because we're wired very similarly, or maybe she will find different rhythms that work for her. But that all comes from a place of like knowing and understanding how you're wired and what you need, if that makes sense.
For sure. Your eldest is 11, and I hear this a lot from parents that the time sort of flies and that it's
Yeah.
sort of gone within
hmm
it within an instant. But there's also more recently a bit of a crazy statistic that you will spend 98% of your time with your children by the time they
hmm
turn 18. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, yeah, that's one that I've looked at a lot recently, and especially with my daughter getting older. So our life is a little bit unique, I think, than probably most people that would listen here. In that I work from home, as you can see, I'm in my closet right now. That's the nature of having 6 kids, is you just kind of work where you can. So my office is in my closet. So I work from home. We homeschool our kids. So all 8 of us, my wife and I and our 6 kids, are all here in the house most days, every day. So I get a tremendous amount of time with my kids compared to, I'd say, like the typical kind of setup if dad's working out of the house or if kids are in school most of the day. And so there's that part of it that is, again, an intentional decision that we've made for our family. I'm not saying that homeschool is like the only or the best option for everybody,
Yeah.
but we know that was best for us. It gives us the opportunity to really, to go back to your last question, do some of the things that are going to allow us to like know and invest in our kids to the degree that we want to. Um, and knowing that, like, I want to use this time to create a family culture that is going to keep our kids around for a long time. Not that they're going to live with us until they're 30 or that they're never going to move out or anything like that, but creating a culture that allows us to stay close to our kids, that keeps them wanting to come back after they've moved out once they have families of their own. It's all part of this vision that we have. Like my wife and I talk often about the type of grandparents that we want to be and how we want to enable our kids to have kids early on so that we can enjoy time with grandkids and we can give them space that they need. And, these are all things that we're thinking about. And so, to maybe like go against some of those statistics, like I want to be the anomaly there. I don't want to have the majority of my time with my kids be done by the time they turn 18. I know that it will decrease by nature of them, moving out or going to college or starting a job or, getting married, having their own kids. Like time will decrease. But it's part of my vision of who I want to be as a dad, to create opportunities to continue seeing my kids and being an instrumental part of my kids' life and them being an instrumental part of mine beyond that. So that's that statistic is like a big motivator for me to say I want to take advantage of this time now so that my time then is still there.
I'm really glad that you answered it like that. It's an average. It is a statistic. It's just one of those
Yeah.
things. I think I remember someone saying you've won at a parent if your kids want to spend time with you as an adult. So
Hmm.
like that's so for me,
Yeah.
that statistic shouldn't be scary. It should be like, how do
Hmm.
I change that? Which is exactly what
Yeah.
I'm sort of looking
Yeah.
at. Rather than,
100%, man.
oh
Yeah.
crap, I've got to spend all this time with them now.
Yeah, 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 100%. And that's not, I mean, I want to, like you said, I want to take full advantage of this time now. I know it's cliche, but it's so true in fatherhood that, the days are long, but the years are short, right? There's so many days when it's like, I just can't wait for them to go to bed. Like, I just need a breather. But then it's like you look up and, my daughter's 11. I can't believe I've been a dad for 11 years. It just doesn't feel like it's been that long. And to see her growing into this young woman is baffling to me, and it makes me want to take advantage of the time where they are in my house, but also continue to do the things now that are going to bring that vision that I have for our family into reality once they're older.
What is the sort of first step for this, right? We've got a man stood right in front of me who makes no excuses, and most
Hmm.
people listening are probably trying to make an excuse, but we've got a guy with 6 kids and goats and a homestead.
Yeah.
We'll explain that in a minute, but yeah, like, there's going to be men making excuses, but I feel like you're the
Yeah.
ultimate the excuse.
Yeah, no, I've got plenty of excuses of my own. Don't worry. But yeah, I think that to get started, you've heard me reference this a number of times already. But in my opinion, this all starts with a vision. Like, it all starts with a vision of who you want to be as a dad and what you want your life to look like. And I know that can be kind of a buzzword, and it may mean different things to different people. And so when I say vision, really what I mean is, like, if you were to close your eyes right now and to think about, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years, in 10 years, 20, 50 years from now? What do I want my life to look like? That's your vision, right? Like, that's just this picture of where you want to go. And the reason I think it's so important to start with that is, if we don't have the end in mind, it's really difficult to work towards something that is unclear or non-existent. We're just kind of taking it day by day. And there's some seasons of life that just need to be like that. But in general, I think it's so critical for dads and for men in general to have a really strong vision of where they want to go. And the exercise that I encourage dads to do to find that, is to think about your funeral. It's a very sobering exercise. This can be highly emotional, but I haven't found anything better. I didn't make this up. This is specific to me, but I use it because I think it's so powerful. Is to think about your funeral. Think about, you've lived a long, fulfilling life. It's 40, 50, 60, however years old you are, from now. And it's your funeral, and your kid is standing up to give your eulogy. They're standing up in front of all of these people that knew you, and they're about to tell a room full of people about the impact that you had on their life as their dad. What do you want them to say? Like, what is it that you want your kids to say about the way that you showed up, the way that you influenced and impacted their life as their dad? And I encourage guys, actually write this out. Like, pull out a piece of paper, pull up a Google Doc, and just write this out. Like, what do you want your kid to say? And to me, that is like the best way to find your vision. It's like the best way to say, okay, at the end of my days, this is who I want to have been. This is the impact I want to have had. And then from there, it's just reverse engineering it into like, how do I become that type of man? How do I become that type of dad? There's, I've got some more frameworks that I use to kind of help dads figure that out with, finding the right rhythms, finding the right habits, creating margin in their life, that kind of thing. But it all starts with that vision and really knowing where you want to go. And if that vision is compelling enough and it's motivating enough, it's going to help eliminate some of those excuses to say, well, I just can't do it. That's just not for me. My life is too busy. My life is too crazy. If that's the outlook that you're going to have, like, you just have to be okay with that vision not ever becoming who you are, and if like that's a hard tension to wrestle with, to say, hey, this is who I want to be, but I'm just not willing to prioritize it right now. You just got to be honest with yourself in that moment. And so that's the place that I encourage everybody to start, is finding that vision.
I think men think about legacy a lot. I think it's something, even if they don't have kids, I think it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in us a little bit, that we want to leave
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
behind. But I don't know of many men who have truthfully sat down and done that. You essentially written their own
Yeah.
eulogy, like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
simplest way of thinking of it. And for me personally, I like have had some recent thoughts around the end and sort of looking back and just sort of like
Yeah.
trying to encapsulate what that looks like. So it's a really
Mm-hmm.
interesting exercise, not only just for dads, but maybe for
Yeah.
kids.
100%. I think, yeah, for anybody to be able to sit down and, just pick anybody, a significant person in your life, what would you want them to say? And it's a really, like I said, it's a sobering exercise to think about. And dads will tell me all the time that they get highly emotional during this, because it's hard to think about. But it's also incredibly inspiring and motivating, to kind of prompt you to action.
Yeah, it's really. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm probably gonna go away and do something
Nice. Yeah.
myself to just, yeah,
Nice.
still holding on to that
Yeah.
legacy for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting. Speaking of sort of legacy and those side of things, let's take your boys and let's look
Hmm.
at the sphere of manhood. You're talking about homeschooling and sort of taking them out
Hmm.
of the school system, which I am aware that a lot of dads are sort of feeling that around boys in particular,
Hmm.
around maybe the lack of competition and those sort of things. But
Yeah.
what are your sort of fears around your boys growing up in this current
Hmm.
climate, becoming dad?
Yeah. It's a timely question. It's one I've been thinking about a lot lately. Actually, I want to write out some thoughts on this for either a post on LinkedIn or maybe a longer form thing. Because when I look around right now at kind of what the world is offering our boys and just men in general, I think it's really sad. When you look at, watching a football game or something, or seeing ads on social media that are targeted towards men or young boys, the things that are being offered just are not life-giving, right? Like, you think it's the things that are constantly being promoted is alcohol and nicotine, drugs, pornography, OnlyFans, sports gambling. I don't know if that's as big a thing where you are, but in America right now, it's huge. It's just like you can't look anywhere without it being like promoted as the thing to do. And like that's the default life being offered to our boys right now, is a life of drugs, alcohol, sex, addiction, gambling. And it's like, man, those things like crush and kill men every day. They ruin marriages, they ruin fatherhood, they like take men away from like very purposeful, intentional things. And it's just like like these young men today are just sacrificing so much of their life to give to these like quick dopamine hits, whether it's a girl on a screen or a bet they're placing on their phone. And like, I look at that and I'm like, I want to do everything in my power to give my boys a different life, like to make their default life different than the one that the world is offering them today. One that is like just rooted in purpose, and that is gives them the opportunity to be very fulfilled in the work that they do and the families that they raise and the things that they cultivate. Like there's no cultivation to be found in those things. It's pure consumption. And it's heartbreaking to see like how men just lose their soul in so many ways when they don't have the opportunity to cultivate, when they get stuck in this loop of just consuming these things at these crazy high rates, and they just lose themselves and they become depressed and anxious and lonely, and they just don't feel like they have anything to contribute to the world. That's like the fear that I have, is that my boys would get lost in that swirl of dopamine and consumption. And I really want to fight very hard for them to see a different picture of manhood and masculinity, one that is very geared towards like cultivation and towards building things, towards like using their strength for good to build other people up, to build other things up. So I could talk about that for a long time, but those are some thoughts that I've been kind of wrestling with over the past couple of weeks, as I've thought about a similar question.
No, it's great. Yeah, gambling in the UK is horrendous. It's
Oh, it's
yeah,
terrible. Oh,
awful. It's I think the crazy stat in the UK is like 80% of profits from gambling come from 5% of their customers. So there's people losing a substantial
yeah,
amount
yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough industry for sure. But I'm
Mhm.
aware that it's a relatively new industry in the States, right? Its licenses have only just been granted, so it must be.
Yeah, it's within the past few years, and it's still state by state. Like it's illegal in South Carolina still, but it's becoming increasingly more prevalent. Like if you scroll on social media, all of like the big, even ESPN now, which
Yeah,
is just like watching the NFL draft last night, and it's just they've got odds on everything, and it's just like they're just feeding it to you. They just want you to engage in this because it's just a profit machine for them when they have their own sports books. But like you said, it's just guys are throwing away their lives and in towards something that has zero significance, right? Like I love sports, I love watching football with my boys, but it has zero impact on my life beyond just a couple hours of excitement every now and then. But to like allow those types of things to take such a high position in the lives of our boys and our young men, and grown men, is a really sad, scary thing.
yeah. I think there's a lot of numbing of boys and men.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Great word.
I use this phrase a lot. There's a lot of boys in men's bodies, and I kind of want to flip the question because obviously you have
Hmm.
girls as well, right? So
Hmm.
um, there's a lot of these boys in men's bodies. So what is your sort of strategy and your thought process around encouraging your girls into this world that we have right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there's a kind of a phrase that I've heard before that like for a dad that your boys will grow up to be like you and your girls will grow up to marry men like you. And I think about that a lot too. And just really, again, I think in the sense of I want to show my boys this alternative picture of masculinity that's full and fulfilling and strong and just very appealing, right? There's a conversation I was having with my son the other day. He was having a tough moment, and I'm trying to get him to think about who are all the heroes that you look up to in the books that you read. And he's thinking about Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and Luke Skywalker, and I'm trying to help him to see like what are the elements of these heroes that are inspiring to you. What makes you drawn to them? It's like those are like, and he's like, they're problem solvers, they're thinkers, they're brave. I'm like, that's who you're designed to be as a man. Like you're designed to be all of those things. And I want to help you find that. I want to help you to see this picture of masculinity, not this one that results in just like perpetual boyhood as these kids grow up. And so with my daughters too, I want them to see that as well, right? Like my wife is going to be the one that takes more of the point on like showing them what it means to be like a strong, compassionate woman. But I want to help my daughters see like this picture of masculinity as well. Because I don't want them to end up with one of those, men who's really a boy inside that's going to, ruin their life, that's going to take them down with them and just take my daughters down with them. I want them to see and know and to be able to like detect, okay, this person that's pursuing me or this person that I'm interested in, when that time comes, they're a real man, right? That they're somebody who is going to be able to provide. They're going to be somebody that's going to love me well. They're going to be somebody who's going to prioritize our family, not somebody who's just going to be giving themselves over to those things we just talked about, those dopamine hits and consumption only lifestyle. So it's certainly something that's on my mind heavily for my girls as much as it is my boys. I want them both to have that picture of like authentic masculinity.
If you could go back 11 years to the day before you became a dad, what's one
Mhm.
thing you'd say to yourself?
Oh man. Oh gosh, such a good question. I think about it. I've thought about that a lot, like the moment where I first held my daughter, and it's like, man, just that moment of realizing my life is forever changed. And I remember having this moment where I'm holding her in the hospital. She's a couple hours old, and I'm thinking about how, man, my life is no longer my own. I think about like back in the day when my wife and I had no kids, we could do whatever we wanted, right? Like on a weekend, if we didn't have any plans, like we just lay in bed all day, watch Netflix and, eat all of our meals in bed. And it was like, this is amazing. And I remember holding my daughter and thinking like that my weekends can't look like that anymore. Like I can't just do whatever I want on the weekends. And I remember it creating like this fear in me of like, oh, I'm losing something here because I'm now responsible for this little girl. It feeling like it sounds crazy to say it now, but it's like the pain of that trade off. Ultimately, it was just me coming kind of face to face with my selfishness in that moment. And man, if I could just go back and tell, like, you know, I think I was 24 at the time, 24-year-old Tyler, like, this is the greatest gift that you will ever have. And like anything that you have to sacrifice to be the best dad you can possibly be for this little girl is worth it 100 times over. Like I would sacrifice everything for my kids to be able to be there for them. And you just can't know that fully in that moment. But I see it now. And like, I wish I could just fully understand at the time, like how much joy, how much purpose, how much just refinement would come from getting to be her dad, over the past 11 years.
One thing I really want to touch on, which is sort of a bit of a growing trend here in the UK, is sort of like dads groups and dads communities.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on those? What do you think? Do you think men should spend time with other dads to share ideas and those sort of things? What's your views on that?
Yeah. 100%. I think, this is one of those areas that I think women and moms in general do better by nature than men do, is they're much more inclined to reach out for help, to express a need, to kind of rally for one another. And I think men are much more inclined to, again, as we've talked about over the course of our conversation here, they're more inclined to kind of stuff those things down, right? That it's whether it's because they feel like it's a sign of weakness or because other people are dependent on them, like that they just have to kind of keep going. And I think it's in the isolation of that things can get really dangerous. That guys can just assume, this was my kind of my mode of operation for a long time, is I just assumed every other dad had things figured out and I was the only one who didn't. I'm like, am I an idiot? Like, do I like how come everybody else can seemingly do this with no issue, but I'm over here like fighting for my life, trying to figure out what in the heck to do. And it's so crazy how just by simply being vulnerable create space for other guys to do the same. One of my favorite posts to make on LinkedIn is to just simply ask dads, like, in this season of life, like, what is the biggest challenge, obstacle, hurdle that you're facing in fatherhood? And just to see guys respond with all these different things that are really hard. And the thing that I always call out is like, I've never seen something posted only once. Every time it's multiple guys sharing the same things. I'm like, we're not alone in this, And so whether it's a community, there's some guys on LinkedIn that recently started a group called Dad Good. That's just like, I think it's up to like 700 dads in a couple of weeks, where guys are just like really rallying for each other. If that's your thing, like you're in a place where you just don't have anybody in your life, or if you've got guys like in your circle, I just posted this morning about, there's 5 guys, 5 other dads that I get with every other week. We'll sit around a fire, sip some bourbon, smoke a cigar, and just like go in on life, on faith, on marriage, on fatherhood, on our jobs, and like just creating space to really rally for and refine one another. Like that is so necessary. Like fatherhood is too difficult a road to walk alone. Like you have to have some brothers in your life that are really kind of like walking it with you.
On sort of brotherhood and men in general, in the men's space, what are you really liking at the moment? What do you want to see
Yeah.
more of? And I guess more specifically on the dad side.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do love to see this growing trend of men. I mean, really, like what you just said, of really starting, I think, to fight for one another. Again, LinkedIn is where I exclusively post my content, so I don't use other social media a ton. Speaking from what I see on LinkedIn, I see these guys that are, just becoming advocates for men. Guys that, there's a guy's, he's literally walking across the country. He's walking across the United States right now, to raise awareness and money for men's mental health. I mentioned these guys that started this Dad Good community, like seeing dads and men in general fight for other men and create space for guys to be known, for guys to be encouraged, to be equipped, to be envisioned. Like that's a beautiful thing. I say that all the time. It's, because I've started this fatherhood coaching thing, I get to meet a lot of dads. I get to talk to a lot of dads that are trying to do similar things. And anytime I have a conversation with them, there's always this element of the world needs more people fighting for this. The world needs more people like you that are creating resources like you are with TRUUMAN to help dads see that they're not alone, that to help or to help men see that they're not alone, to see and hear other stories that can be inspiring and motivating, that can help them see, oh man, life feels really hard right now, but there is another way. There's other options. There's things I can press into. And those types of things are super, super encouraging to me. Like to think about my boys growing up in a world where like we can maybe replace some of that, like the dopamine hit addiction that's offered to them now, instead offer them an alternative where men are really rallying for one another in strong, powerful ways. Like, man, that's beautiful. And I want to contribute to that in the work that I'm doing. I want to contribute to it by helping to support and promote guys like you and all these other dads that are fighting for these spaces, other men that are fighting for these spaces, and so really, really encouraged to see all of that happening right now.
Amazing. Tyler, it's been an absolute pleasure. If people have liked
Yeah.
what they've heard and they want to hear more, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so I mentioned I post daily content Monday through Friday on LinkedIn. You can find me on there. That's where I'm. You'll see all my stuff on there. I do have a website, 3 mile per hour, 3mph fatherhood.com. It's a little outdated right now. I'm kind of revamping some of the things that I'm working on there, but that's got links to my LinkedIn, and I've got an email list as well. So but people are always welcome to reach out to me as well. Tyler at 3mphfatherhood.com. Always happy to, just hear from dads or men that are in need of encouragement, or maybe running into a difficult season of fatherhood, and they just need a hand and figure out kind of what the right next move is. And so, welcome anybody to reach out. We'll be happy to chat and do whatever I can to support you as a dad.
Awesome, Tyler. Thank you so much. I will leave the final thoughts with yourself if you have any.
No, this is wonderful. I appreciate the space to have these honest conversations like this. This kind of thing is, I can't think of a better way to spend an hour, just getting to really dig deep into the reality of being a dad, being a man, of raising young men and daughters that are going to marry young men one day. This is the good stuff of life, and being able to have spaces to have this conversation is a really powerful thing. So thank you for creating the space. It's been an honor and a privilege to get to join you here today, and I hope it's an encouraging conversation for those that listen.